This is the moment that changed One Piece forever. The arbitrary decision of the 3 worst generation captains leaving Wano. Faced with 3 paths forward, one leading to Shanks, one leading to Blackbeard, and one leading to Dr. Vegapunk. These 3 captains could have gone in any direction and the series could have gone radically differently. Law could have met Vegapunk, Kid could have fought Blackbeard, and the most insane outcome of all, Luffy could have finally reunited with Shanks. For some, things would have turned out a lot better. For others, things would have gone significantly worse. And again, all of this was based on the completely arbitrary fate take the wheel decision. And the only thing we need to completely shake up how One Piece ends is for Trafalgar Law to also want to take the middle path. So here's how that plays out. In this scenario, all 3 captains greedily and pettily want to take the middle path. So they all draw straws and leave fate to chance. Or leave chance to fate, one or the other. And the winner of this round is Law, who decides to take the middle path. Kid is the runner-up and will go left. Meanwhile, Luffy loses again and is forced to go right. This takes him to Egghead Island, which means we don't need to worry about Luffy in this scenario. Everything there plays out as we know it. However, things change quite a bit for our other 2 captains. Trafalgar Law and his band of men, women, and bear end up setting sail to Elbaf and swiftly encountering Emperor of the Sea, red-haired Shanks. Sounds like a familiar outcome to encountering Blackbeard, but it's really not. Primarily because Law is smart enough not to launch into an all-out catastrophic attack on an emperor. That's really more of a Luffy or Eustace Kid kind of thing to do. And really, they could just sail right by, but Trafalgar Law has business on Elbaf. This island houses lots of potential secrets that need knowing. So I'm sure that Law would be very diplomatic and Shanks himself probably quite cordial because Law does have a public alliance with Luffy, so any friend of Rubber Lad is a friend of Shanks. Unless it's Bartolomeo because he's been a very, very naughty chicken man. There is one big problem though, which is that Shanks is now very serious about finding the whole One Piece thing. And since Law has recovered from his injury, Shanks is going to deliver an ultimatum. Hand over your mystery cube rubbings or fight the full might of the red hair pirates. And Law will think about this for like a second before immediately acquiescing. No matter how important the poneglyphs are, Law knows how outmatched he is here. He also probably knows that he could just wander over to the Straw Hats and go, "Hey, Nico Robin, could I see the cubes again?" But it doesn't have to be a completely bitter experience either. Shanks isn't a bad dude, and I could see him allowing Law to make copies of the copies so that they can both share in the poneglyphic goodness. The only reason why he was so merciless with Kid is because Kid was going to kill all of Shanks's friends, you know, the fancy lady captain, geriatric captain, and most importantly, frog captain. And even if Shanks does just outright take the poneglyphs, this is still a much better outcome for Law. Shanks then sets sail and leaves Law to his business on Elbaf, where he may very well go on to discover its unknown secrets. Again, pretty good all in all, at least comparatively to what happened against Blackbeard. And speaking of, in this timeline, on his way to Winter Island, Eustace Kid is assaulted by Blackbeard. I'm gonna be honest here, neither of the 3 paths that Kid could take are great options, but I think that this is potentially Kid's best outcome. Firstly, he's gonna grow a pair of boobs because Doc Q will turn each and every Kid pirate into a woman via his woman disease power. But beyond breasts, Blackbeard is actually the perfect opponent for Kid. Blackbeard is the anti-Shanks. When it comes to combat, Blackbeard has a demonstrable lack of planning, unfortunately combined with a critical mass of arrogance, which means that Blackbeard is not going to be able to avoid Kid's damned punk attack. This was the attack that was going to destroy an entire fleet of ships were it not for Shanks's wild observation haki. Blackbeard has currently displayed no such future sight, and his ship is going to be obliterated by the attack. Eustace Kid will not be stopped, which may have a very unfortunate side effect of killing Charlotte Pudding because she is on board the ship. However, the core crew would probably be saved by Van Alga, who teleports them all to Winter Island. And from here, Eustace Kid has a choice. He can either leave the Blackbeard pirates there, keep sailing and just wave, or he can make the wrong choice, and that's what he's gonna do. When Kid encountered the full might of the red hair pirates, he saw that as an opportunity. So now to see an emperor and a handful of crew members marooned on an island, well, that will practically be seen as a freebie. Eustace Kid will absolutely choose to engage, and Eustace Kid will absolutely be defeated again. With his awakening, Kid actually had a decent advantage at sea, but on land is a very different story, and there is no way that his crew can overcome even half of Blackbeard's primary crew. The darkness, the earthquakes, the teleporting, the boobs. Kid is going to be subject to all of them. The Kid pirates will either be killed or kept to be sold as slaves. And as for Kid himself, he may very well be killed in order to harvest his magical fruit powers. I mean, there is a potential world where Blackbeard offers Kid the chance to join his crew like he did with Kuzan and Gecko Moria, but even if he does, given how defiant Kid was against Kaido, he's not taking that offer up, which means that yes, he's almost certainly going to be killed for his magical fruit powers. So the major differences in this timeline are, Shanks and Blackbeard have swapped poneglyphs. Shanks now has the ones from Zou and Wano, whilst Blackbeard has the ones from Wano and Whole Cake Island, which is actually pretty bad for Blackbeard. Having recently invaded Whole Cake Island, he almost certainly has that poneglyph already, so now he has doubles. Doubles and no one to trade with. The Kid pirates are eliminated, Eustace Kid himself is eliminated from life, and Charlotte Pudding may also be a casualty. On the bright side though, the Heart pirates are still fully functional and ready to do whatever it is that they plan on doing. I don't know what their plans were. Alright, let's rewind. In this scenario, all three captains greedily and pettily want to take the middle path, so they all draw straws and leave fate to chance. Or leave chance to fate, one or the other. The winner of this round is Kid, who decides to take the middle path. Luffy is the runner-up and will go left. Meanwhile, Law loses the straw game and is forced to go right. This scenario takes Kid to Elbaf, so we don't need to deal with him. Shanks has already done that. But Law taking the right path means that he ends up at Egghead Island and encounters Jewelry Bonnie in the Warm Eddy. Law is able to save her with his OP powers, and then they encounter a very hostile Lilith. Shaka does the thing where he stops Lilith from killing the Heart Pirates, and then he invites them onto the island. If we're being honest here, Law probably doesn't want to get involved in any of this, but it's out of his hands. From his perspective, it's either land on the strange island or get eaten by the even stranger metal creatures. And just as with the Straw Hat, Stella is going to see this as a fated event. And he will of course ask for passage away from Egghead Island on the Heart Pirates vessel. And you know what? They might even make it as well. A fleet of 100 marine ships arriving is big and scary and great and all, but a single submarine is a pretty hard counter to those mere floaty boys. The big question is, will they actually get the chance to escape? Because shortly after this, York will enact Murder.exe, and without the raw firepower of the Straw Hats, I don't think that any of the Vegapunks or the Heart Pirates stand a chance against the Seraphim. It's particularly bad because Zoro was the only one who knew about the Lunarian weakness, and he's not here, he's elsewhere. And as overpowered as he is, there's really only so much that Law can do on his own against York, 4 Seraphim, a Marine Admiral, and a fleet twice the size of the Paramount War deployment. The best possible way this ends is for Law to be captured by the Marines. However, I think it's more likely that he would be eventually overcome and killed by the Seraphim first, which means that all of the Vegapunks bar Stella and York are going to die. And let's be real, things probably won't go great for Stella from here. And I would say that this is the worst possible outcome for Law. Meanwhile, blissfully unaware of all of the kill murdering, Luffy and the Straw Hats are attacked by Blackbeard on the way to Winter Island. And this resolution might seem a bit underwhelming, but there's an obvious solution to this problem. Frankie activates a coup de burst, and the crew avoids the conflict entirely, because there is nothing in this world that seems to be capable of matching the Thousand Sunny's abilities. Luffy isn't going to take this fight, because even if he wants to, a more responsible crew member will just say, think about how much it took to beat Kaido. Right now it's just the 10 of us, a cloud in a baton, and a swamp in a barrel. Think about it, Luffy, we should not do this. So they'll just go boop, fly away, and we would end up with another Jaya situation. Is what I would say, if not for one person. Charlotte Pudding is aboard Blackbeard's ship. Pudding's engagement to Sanji is a highly public affair, and so all Blackbeard needs to do is yell, I have your chef's pudding woman, and I'm gonna do some real bad things to her. And in this case, the Straw Hats 100% fight. I mean, Sanji even refused to abandon his abusive family on Whole Cake Island, so he's not gonna leave Pudding here like this. Which means that we'd probably get to see the gender swap Straw Hats, which we've already seen in an SBS, but just like Trafalgar, it would be cool to see them in the actual series. Potentially, we'd even get to see a gender swapped Caribou, which I think would be far too hot for any shonen magazine to publish. Ultimately, though, I can't help but feel like the Blackbeard pirates are at a huge disadvantage. The full Straw Hat crew versus Blackbeard, Jesus Burgess, Doc Q, and Van Elga. And Stronger, I suppose Stronger as well. But even with a sickly Pegasus, the math's still just doesn't work out. Blackbeard is a man guided by fate, very much in the same way that Luffy is. And I think that fate spared Blackbeard this day, although I suppose you could also say the same for Luffy. The problem is that Blackbeard has a mystery factor. There is something we don't know about him, something very important that could very well ensure his victory in this situation. But that goes a bit too far into pure speculation for my liking. So with everything we do actually know, I think the Straw Hats win here. Or it's a scenario where they rescue Pudding and then immediately run away. Either way, it's not good for Blackbeard. And so the major differences in this timeline are: Law and the Heart Pirates are almost certainly dead, almost all of the Vegapunks are dead, Blackbeard suffers a defeat and gets no poneglyph rubbings, as well as having his only key to reading them being taken, but also the Straw Hats don't meet Vegapunk, and that will probably have very negative ramifications down the line. Alright, let's rewind. The winner of this round is Luffy, who decides to take the middle path. Law is the runner-up and will go left. Meanwhile, Kid loses the straw game and is forced to go right. Here we deal with Law very easily. Everything plays out as we know against Blackbeard. But meanwhile, Eustace Kid arrives at Egghead Island, encountering Jewelry Bonnie stuck in the warm eddy, to which he may, or honestly may not, rescue her. Kid is he's not a nice person, to put it lightly. He's a pirate known for excessive collateral damage, legitimate mass murder, and there was even that one time where he crucified those poor dudes. So he may very well just not bother even trying to help Bonnie. And even if he does, there's no guarantee that he can actually save her. Kid doesn't have Law's god powers, and it took a very special Straw Hat skill set to rescue Bonnie. So I don't think things are looking great for her either way. The Kid pirates then encounter Lilith and the Sea Beasts, and just as with Luffy and Law, Shaka will attempt to stop Lilith, except this time it doesn't work. Mostly because Eustace Kid will have already launched an attack before Lilith can. And again, if the prospect of facing Shanks and literally all of the Red Hair forces is not going to deter Kid, then neither will a handful of giant metal fish. So from here, Lilith will ignore any pleas from Shaka and go on the all-out offensive against Kid. And this will have a side effect of making Lilith very, very happy because, you know, she gets to shoot things. And Kid is in a bit of an interesting spot because his Devil Fruit will have some degree of control over the metal weapons and creatures used against him, but ultimately what he's going up against is the full might of Egghead Island, a location so heavily fortified and weaponsome that the Marines have sent no less than 100 ship things to deal with it. And I don't think that Kid can win in this situation. Let's say that he neutralizes all of the sea beasts through magnets, that's fine. But what does he do about every other weapon on the island, many of which are not necessarily metallic in nature? As well as the Seraphim, how does he deal with the Seraphim? I dare say the Victoria Punk will once again become the Victoria Sunk, and Kid will be defeated a third time, as well as likely die from drowning. To clarify, it's not that I want to do this to Kid, it's just that with the way that Oda has written him, there are very, very few options. In fact, there's one option, there's always one. Because Kid's automatic response to anything is to just attack it. And in this case, all three of the things that he's going to attack have the power to overcome him. And with no hope of rescue whatsoever, York will then succeed in murdering the Vegapunks. Meanwhile, again blissfully unaware of all of the kill murdering, the Straw Hats pull up at the long-awaited Elbaf to discover the Red Hair Pirates. And this is my favorite outcome by far. Because at this point, Luffy has become a great pirate, or at the very least a pirate equal to that of Shanks. So one of two things can happen here. The first is that Luffy doesn't believe he's become a great pirate yet, and so he refuses to meet Shanks in order to keep his promise. He might sail right by or even dock at a different part of Elbaf. I can't see him passing up the opportunity to explore Elbaf. But this meeting, it's not happening. Alternatively, Luffy does believe he's become a great pirate, and so it's time to return the Straw Hat. And I think that we'll look back on this as a missed opportunity in the history of the One Piece world, because I personally don't think that Luffy will ever get the opportunity to return the Straw Hat. But whatever business Shanks has elsewhere, we're putting it on hold for this reunion. Usopp meets up with Yasop, as well as Dory, Broggy, Oimo, and Kashi. In fact, this is actually a massive Usopp-focused situation, and I think what we see happen next is the greatest party in series history to date. But again, there is one problem. Again, Shanks, that dude, that guy, he is serious about finding the One Piece, and he's going to want Luffy's road poneglyphs, but they're not going to get into a fight battle for them. Instead, they'll settle things in the traditional pirate way, a Davy back fight. And whatever the outcome of this match, Shanks will leave once again clad in straw headwear, with Monkey D. Luffy setting sail, now completely head nude, but having kept his promise and now determined to complete his dream.